Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So we're back on the Middle East story that has dominated the Pursuit of Truth and most of the media. Despite everything we've seen and we keep seeing, nothing seems to change. And I see it as just another example of what human beings do to other human beings in our system, where we have forgotten the only intrinsic truth that we're all human beings, and that the labels that we carry around, of our identity based on a plot of land that we're born in that was cut up from the rest, and you're told that you're this and you're that, are all man-made. They're not intrinsic to us. A baby isn't born with them. We reinforce those things. And yet look at what we're doing to each other in the guise of that. And so it started with the bus attack, the terrorist attack by Hamas, killing, is it 5 or 6? Seems like it's 6 now. People who were just ordinary people going about their days on a bus. Imagine that's your loved ones just going on a bus to work or to pick up or take their kids or whatever they're doing. Imagine. Why would anyone do this? And how does anyone think that doing things like this will further your cause? And the thing is, there's a bit where Michael Clark on Sky News, he enlightened me when he talked about the reasons why terrorists do things, because I never thought of it this way. I always thought that, that people believe in the things that they claim to believe in, but it appears that his understanding shows that, well, actually, maybe they don't, because that actually makes sense what he talks about, in the sense that, because from logical sense, that whenever there's a terrorist attack, the outpouring from the other side, because it's, this is done against ordinary people, it could have been you. There's obviously going to be an outpouring of rage, and sort of is not going to advance anyone's mission of, if they want a two-state solution, or if they want Israel to stop attacking Gaza, is only going to make matters worse. And it's never going to be seen as some kind of moral act. It's not like you're a suffragette and you're chaining yourself up on a railing. And when Michael Clark talks about this, he talks about the reason why terrorists do these things is actually to cause disruption, is to cause the other side to do something outrageous. And of course, that did happen in this regard. And I never really thought about it that way. But then I suppose that kind of logic makes sense. But then that makes you wonder that actually they're not really caring about the actual people that they claim to be caring, that they're doing this action in their name, in the sense that, this the suffering that's going on in Gaza, is it really about, what they're doing? Did that actually help them? No, it didn't. It made it worse. But it didn't help. It didn't stop. It didn't cause a ceasefire to happen. It didn't cause the world to suddenly say, "Oh, enough's enough," because you did something terrible. I don't know what it is with human beings. How intrinsically we're not born like this. Babies love each other. You put babies with everyone, with other babies, they love each other. It's only we somehow breed this into them through teaching and peers and etc. to have disdain for fellow human beings. If it was a roll of dice and you're born somewhere else, you would have a different set of ideas. I mean, how silly is this? Why do we not understand this? Why do we let ourselves be to act in this way and somehow find that it's perfectly okay, because we've told each other that, yeah, it's okay for wars, it's okay for this, that and the other, and self-defense and all this kind of stuff, as long as there's a reason. Well, no, like in the Sky News, he says something about, that the terrorists, would they justify what they did. There's no justification for killing human beings. Well, I don't believe there is. I guess there's a reason why in this system it's done, but I don't know. I find that, very difficult. And so that happened, and then the next day, Israel launched an attack in Doha in Qatar. Now they say that Qatar wasn't made aware, and they say President Trump wasn't made aware, although there is a news bit at the beginning from Reuters that seems to suggest he was. And I do wonder sometimes, whether both of them may have been informed, but of course they're never going to admit it because it doesn't favour them, in the sense that if Israel said to Qatar, yes, we're going to attack Hamas, their headquarters, and I don't know why Qatar, who claim to be peaceful, have a terrorist organisation based there. Maybe they weren't a terrorist organisation when they first came, I don't know. But that's problematic, isn't it? But they may have been asked, and they said, yeah, it's fine, but we're not going to admit that you told us. And of course Israel said, well, that's fine, because obviously they don't want to piss off the rest of the Middle East, excuse my language, or to incur anything from Hamas internally. So that may be possible. And of course Donald Trump for the same reason, because he wants peace, and so just because they say, because we all know there's something that human beings all seem to be able to do, and this is another big of our problems, is lying, not telling the truth. So it's possible that they're just telling us that because they don't lose face by doing that, because they'll say, because people will say, well, that's Israel, they never tell anyone, and this, that, and the other. And Israel won't mind because they've achieved whatever they wanted to achieve anyway, and no one's going to be picking up all the international law papers on the floor and saying, this clause here, you just breached it by bombing a sovereign country. I mean, maybe they did get permission, and that's why they're not worried about it, because it's never going to go anywhere. And even if they didn't, I don't think there's going to be any UN are too busy talking about Russia doing the same thing, with them incursioning into Polish airspace. They're too worried about that. They're not worried. They don't seem to be concerned about Israel's fragrance for the international law. It seems that at the moment we live in a time where clauses in international law means absolutely nothing. We've got countries left, right, and centre breaking it, and no one being held to account for it, other than someone standing up like Sakir Starmer, reading some kind of speech out of and then saying, oh, it's terrible what Israel done, and then inviting and then hosting the Israeli president. I mean, it's like, well, I don't know, this world that those in top live in, it seems to be, they just get on with each other, like with was it Lord Mandelson now with this scandal with Jeffrey Epstein, that everyone seems to know each other, and that they just sort of, just smooze around with each other. It seems like it doesn't really matter. It's only us little people that get angry and think, well, there's international law. Why isn't it, that it's written down? They did this. Why isn't there any, if you go and do something wrong, you get the full force of the law. But they've got all these statutes, and they're just not going to be used unless they're against a country that they don't like, and there's some kind of benefit in doing it. And then it will. And then we're all meant to sit there and vote for them and believe them and trust them. And you wonder why trust and all these things and conspiracy and all this is in the stage it is because now with social media, we all get to see this live. We can be, like you're hearing these things are occurring, and journalists are already there, and the footage is already on social media for us all to see. You can't hide from the truth anymore. And that's why we see all this double standards and hypocrisy and etc. And as I would say, another further proof that the system that we live in is just not working for humanity, because it's allowing these things to carry on. And, like there's, you hear the former Israeli, I don't know if he was prime minister, talking about, when the Sky News Howard Hakeem asked him about international law, and he sort of basically says, like, if any Israeli or Jewish person is attacked, then it doesn't matter where you are, they will come for retribution. And yet, of course, that goes against the international law. I assume they're signed up for it, because obviously you can't do that. You might want to do that, but you can't do that because you have to seek resolutions, like in the Iraq and Afghanistan war. Remember that debacle? And whereas now it seems like no one has to do that. No one seems to be seeking any UN resolutions anymore. They're just doing whatever they want, and there's no consequence for it. And like it seems these papers, clauses and statutes are pretty worthless now. Yeah, not the same for us if we came around and did it. But yeah, just to hear him sort of say that, on live media, on TV, on mainstream media, to sort of say that, we're just going to find you wherever you are. It doesn't matter which country you're in. You can't just hide in there. Terrorist is a terrorist. And I get that. I get the sense that, if you get rid of terrorists, that's brilliant. Of course, you've got to solve why terrorists came about, because usually there's a reason why terrorists come about, and that root issue needs to be solved. And of course, that goes also to like the Israel-Palestine living with each other, even though they're all probably related. If you go far enough back to Abraham, they're probably all from the Isaac and Isaiah tribe. They're all interlinked, I suspect. And yet, even if you take religion out of it, we're all related anyway, because we're all human beings. Yet we don't seem to see that. We all have hearts. We all have our only one existence. We all have children and mothers and fathers. And, when something horrible happens to one side, they realise it. But when it happens to the other side, they don't realise it. And yet it's like, how I don't understand that. How you don't understand that if you do something bad is going to happen to you. And yet you can see the suffering that it causes one side, but not the other side. And so why do we do this to each other? I mean, imagine if there is a God who's just and the God of love, and he comes down and sees how we treat each other in his image, we were made. I mean, imagine if we're all his children, how we're squabbling with each other over these man-made things and bits of money and bits of land, everything that he gave all of us, that we're squabbling over that rather than living in our one existence to the best we possibly can. But yeah, just to hear this former Israeli Prime Minister talk, blatant disregard for those international laws, and yet there's nothing. I mean, it doesn't look like America or anyone or the UN is going to do anything about it, other than say a few sanctions and a slap on the wrist, and don't do that again. I mean, but here's some more weapons you can buy from us. I don't get what kind of world we live in. And you imagine, this is nothing like I say, take the tags off. It's nothing to do with the people. It's to do with like these leaders. And this happens, throughout history and throughout other places. And it's just, it's replaced by different people. And then you've got afterwards a Palestinian person talking about, and the same, you talking about all the atrocities that happen in Gaza. And yeah, I get all that, but they're not denouncing. Yes, you can say that what Israel did, invading, bombing a sovereign country, a peace-loving country who's helping with the negotiations. But then you can't not mention the fact that what Hamas are doing. You can't be saying about one person breaking international law, but not then saying, that Hamas are not doing the same thing. And this is the problem I sometimes find. And I know why some Palestinians may be, thinking that, at least someone's fighting for us, because the international community is left, like when other countries break international law, do nothing about it in terms of land and settlement and all that kind of stuff, is left to their own devices. And so they probably see, someone's fighting for us. But the thing is you can't say, that, look at them breaking international law if, the side that's doing it for you, like Hamas for the Palestinians, are also breaking international law. Breaking it, you can't, because it then weakens your argument of then you can't pick and choose. You have to believe in international law, and both sides should be following it, and both sides shouldn't be killing each other. And you've got to see that all lives are equal. We can't be talking about, oh, look at the Palestinians and then lives are being taken, and then not see the same kind of suffering that's happening on the Israeli side. So but listening to these people, I mean, I know a lot of it's history and all this kind of stuff, but it just makes you feel so sad to be a human being, that this is, despite everything that, if there is a God, that he gave us this planet and all this land and this abundance and food and everything, for the 7 billion or how many, there's enough food and land and, all this stuff for all of us to live a great life. And yet we've chosen to live like this. And then you hear different people who are, who have positions of power talking, whether they're journalists or whether they're politicians or former or whatever, talking about this situation. And there seems no hope for humanity in the way that we treat each other and, only see one side suffering and not the other, when we're all human beings. And especially those who are of a religious nature believe that we're all children of God. I don't understand. It's just such a shame to hear this, and it seems like, it's just getting worse. And yeah, so you can hear the clips that I've got. I hope I've covered most of it. I guess I've carried the spirit and the essence of it, but just the fact that, you can see what's happening, and the system that we're in is not really suitable, or what's that word, when something's not working anymore. It's not fit for purpose for humanity, for all of us. It's fit for purpose maybe for those in power or those who are wealthy that it doesn't affect, but it's not fit for purpose for the general populace, for the majority of humanity. And therefore, then, why are the majority of the population so happy to keep it going, and so happy to keep voting in, and so happy to keep only seeing, waving your flag, or only seeing your side, and forgetting that the fact is that we're all actually human beings, and we're all living with each other, and we choose to live like this? I don't get that. Take care, take it easy. God bless and peace.
Coming to us here at Sky News, you can see there those bullet holes. I can't tell you whether they are the bullet holes from the attackers, or whether that's the response from that soldier and those civilians who shot dead those two attackers. So I can't tell you exactly what those bullet holes relate to, but we can tell you it's part of the wider incident that has occurred in Jerusalem this morning. This is a busy intersection to the northeast of the city. The road leads to some of the settlements that exist in East Jerusalem as well. And this is the first incident of its type for several months now, but obviously follows that wider situation in the region following the October 7th attacks of 2023 that then initiated the Israeli government's military response in Gaza itself. That's also led to an increase in violence in the West Bank, although that has received less attention in some respects because of the situation in Gaza, but there has been a really significant and serious uptick in violence between settlers and Palestinians in the West Bank. We've seen numerous Israeli military operations in the West Bank over the course of recent months as well. Well, all of this now happening live in Jerusalem, taking place against that backdrop. And I can tell you that at least 5 people were killed in this shooting. Paramedics who responded to the scene said that it was chaotic, people and the area covered in broken glass, people wounded and unconscious on the road, on the pavement near the bus stop. The Prime Minister is on the scene, and we can see a huge response from the emergency and security services, and also huge interest from local communities as well. Around 15 people injured, 6 in a serious condition, following those attackers who boarded the bus at that major intersection. Like I say, this is in the northern entrance to Jerusalem. It's on a road that leads to Jewish settlements in East Jerusalem. we're hearing that Israel Defense Forces soldiers are searching the area for other suspects. They're also searching areas on the outskirts of Ramallah, that is a city in the West Bank. Our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons, is on the scene. And Adam, just bring us an update of what's happening around you.
Well, this is the scene where the attack happened, and if I move out of the way, that is the bus that was attacked this morning. First emergency call coming in at 10:15 local time, 8:15. On the other side of that van vehicle is the Israeli Prime Minister, who is the scene, and alongside him is still Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister. So effectively we have two things that we need to consider here. First is this attack itself, which has left, we understand, 5 people dead, has left other people in a grave condition. There are those who were more lightly injured. The circumstances of this attack remain difficult to fully comprehend. There were, we believe, 2 attackers, both of whom have been, in the words of the Israeli police, neutralised, which I assume to mean have been killed on the scene. And as you can see, there's a lot of, as you would imagine, a huge amount of emergency service response. So police over there, roads obviously closed, but also ambulances on the scene, as well as Shin Bet personnel who are here, and you can see them all around here, the police, the various sources. I'm just being told that Itamar Ben-Gvir has now left this scene. As far as is still here. And that leads us into the hugely important second element of this, which is what happens next. Now, that will, to an extent, depend on the circumstances of this attack. Who carried it out? Why did they carry it out? Where did they come from? What were they trying to do? Were they affiliated, for instance, to a group like Hamas?
Just pause you for a brief second. We're just seeing images of Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to the press. He's speaking in Hebrew. If he does change to English, we'll bring you those comments live. He's very fluent in English. I wouldn't be surprised, considering the situation and considering the politician that he is, that he won't give a few lines in English. But we will keep across any comments he makes and bring them to you, any translations of those, and we'll bring you any English that he shares his thoughts in due course. But Adam Parsons is standing by for us. Adam, just give us a sense of the atmosphere there at the moment.
Well, there's a lot of people, to be blunt, there's a lot of people who have come here to witness what has happened. I think there is a sense of real shock, because these are the things that don't normally happen, particularly in Jerusalem. You hear a lot about those people around me. As you can see, a lot of members of the Orthodox Jewish community have come here, and they will know that attacks, that killings happen in the West Bank, but they will not have expected this to happen here in Jerusalem. It's a highly protected city for exactly this reason, that over the course of decades there have been a huge number of terrorist attacks in Jerusalem, and a huge security wall was built around this city in order to provide pretty tough checkpoints between anyone travelling from the West Bank and coming here towards Jerusalem. I think it's worth saying where we are. We're on the northwest, pretty much on the outskirts of Jerusalem. This is not in the heart of the city, but it is near enough that it will shock the people who are coming here. it is remarkable, to be blunt, that you can get so near to the scene of this attack. I've had a history of reporting on a number of terrorist incidents in different countries, and normally, if this were to happen in Britain or other European countries, I really don't think you would be standing over the road from the scene of a multiple killing. So I think there may be a point that the Israeli police, the Israeli government, want the world to see this. They want the world to be shocked, because there are members of Mr. Netanyahu's cabinet, notably Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, who have for a long time now pushed a very extreme take on Israel's relationship with the Palestinians. And to break that down, Mr. Smotrich just last week pushed for the annexation of 82% of the West Bank. Mr. Ben-Gvir has echoed similar sentiments that are effectively, their line would be that Israel can and Israelis cannot live safe lives when they are threat from what they would refer to as terrorists. They've taken very strong lines on Gaza and saying that Gaza should be emptied of people. So there's an element by which the reaction of the Israeli government now and of Mr. Netanyahu is critical.
We're just seeing, Adam, whilst you're speaking, some footage of Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister, and Benjamin Netanyahu standing next to each other, giving statements to Israeli media in Hebrew there. When we get further details of exactly what they've been saying, we'll bring it to our viewers here on Sky News. We're just looking at the Sky News feed now from Adam and his team of the scene here, and as Adam's describing, the bus in the background. Remarkable how close the press have been allowed to get to this scene that is only just over 2 hours old now. It appears as though perhaps the Prime Minister, the National Security Minister, are leaving in that vehicle, as we're just seeing there. Short press conference. More details to come as well, Adam, from the Foreign Minister, Gideon Saar, who's, like you say, in Hungary. What would this do in terms of the political situation in Israel? What would this mean for those decision makers that we've just been hearing and seeing from? What will they say? What will they do? How will they action this going forwards, do you think?
Well, the first thing to say is, in this city and in this region, it is never wise to come to rapid conclusions without knowing the circumstances. So until we know exactly who these people were and why they tried to legitimize, if they did, the attack that is carried out here, it's very hard to come to conclusions. What I think you can say is, at the moment, there is a lot of tension between the Israelis and the Palestinian community. For those who are not familiar with the geography here, Jerusalem is a divided city, divided into East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem. East Jerusalem was historically Palestinian land, annexed by or part of Jordan for a while, and then annexed, taken over by Israel, but has still remained. There used to be a green line right down the middle of Jerusalem that effectively marked the border of Israel. Jerusalem is now all run by Israel, but it is still divided territory, and the East Jerusalem is considered occupied Palestinian territory under international law, and is seen as either part of or certainly akin to the West Bank. Now that gives rise to a huge amount of tension, and one of the questions will be: are the people who carried out this attack Palestinians who did this for reasons that, at the moment, let's be blunt, we don't know, and that will be one of the questions. What I think we can predict with almost certainty is that Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich will rapidly, along with probably other members of the cabinet, to be blunt, will use this as an example of why Israel needs to toughen its security cordon between Jerusalem and the West Bank. They will say that this is a reason, certainly in the eye to Mr. Smotrich, why Israel should annex the West Bank. I have little doubt that some in the cabinet will say that this is a reason why they need to pursue the war in Gaza, and they will say that Israel as a nation remains utterly in threat to the rest of the world. Sorry, not to the rest of the world. I'm distracted because Itamar Ben-Gvir is at the moment standing on just the other side of the road from me. So they will be saying that this is why Israel is under threat from Palestinians, why the rest of the world should absolutely not recognise a Palestinian state. So there will be a huge political ramification of this, and that is before we have any of the facts about who carried out this attack and why they carried it out and what their purpose was, and indeed whether or not they were affiliated in any way to a group such as Hamas or the PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So those questions unresolved, but have no doubt at all that the political ramifications of this attack will reverberate for a long while.
Vote. So that is one bit of breaking news. Another is that we are now getting more about what has happened in Doha. Let's bring in our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons. Adam, there's been explosions there. It now appears that Israel is saying that they are responsible. What can you tell us? What are the IDF saying?
That this is an operation that has been carried out in Doha, and the IDF, or the Israeli government, in the form of the Israeli military and Shin Bet, which is the security agency, are saying that they have carried out precision airstrikes targeting the leadership of Hamas a short while ago. We've seen videos of those explosions in Doha. And I'm going to read out to you the statement they put out is from their statement in Arabic, but just to translate it, they're saying the Hamas leaders who were targeted have led Hamas's terrorist activities for years and bear direct responsibility for the October 7th massacre, and they say for waging the war against Israel. The IDF says prior to the raid, steps were taken to avoid civilian casualties, including the use of precision munitions. And they say the IDF and Shin Bet will continue to determine who is responsible for the October 7th massacre. So if we just unpick that, this is clearly a huge moment for Israel to attack another nation's territory. It raises a huge question about the communications that would have happened between Qatar and Israel in the run-up to this attack. It is hard to believe that Qatar would have allowed this attack to happen. This is also within, just over 24 hours since an attack here in Jerusalem that killed 6 civilians carried out by 2 gunmen. And this morning, the armed wing of Hamas claimed responsibility for that attack. So was this reprisal from Israel in following on from that? And then further, who has been targeted? Have they been killed? Have the people who were targeted in this, were they engaged in negotiations around a potential ceasefire? We simply don't know these at the moment.
Adam,
but by any standards, this is a pretty huge moment in this conflict.
It certainly is, Adam, and I was just going to put that point to you. I mean, the fact that we know about it, the fact that Israel have said that they were responsible for it, does that suggest to you that it has been successful? I wonder if this was an unsuccessful assassination attempt, whether Israel would have been quite so quick to confirm it was them.
I think it would be very hard if you have carried out an airstrike on another nation. There's no way you can do that and then not have it traced back to you quickly. So I think we shouldn't read into it that it's been yet a success. The fact that they are giving these details, though, certainly suggests that they're pleased with how it's happened. I mean, again, very hard to know how Israel will immediately be able to gauge the success or otherwise of this attack. Bearing in mind, it's carrying out this attack on another nation's territory, and of course, the reaction that comes in the other direction is likely to be one of fury, I imagine. So,
and of course, Adam, it's
not just provocative, but inflammatory.
I mean, it's not the first time that Israel has obviously attacked another country's territory. We think back to attacks that we've seen in Yemen in the last year, for example, and of course in Iran. But Qatar is a different kettle of fish, isn't it? In the sense that Qatar and Doha has been used as a negotiating hub. This is a country within the Middle East that Israel is on friendlier terms with. We're getting some notification as I talk to you, Adam, from Al Jazeera TV. They are citing a Hamas source saying that Hamas negotiations delegation was targeted during the meeting in Doha. So if this is the case, that it is negotiators that have been targeted here, Adam, this also raises another question, doesn't it? Because, if you're hoping to get any kind of peace in Gaza and in between Israel and Hamas, these are the people that would be carrying out these kind of negotiations, one would assume.
Yeah, look, let's put it into some context. The reason I'm talking to you on a phone right now, rather than from a normal position on a bureau, is that I was off on my way to an event to talk to people who are actually involved in this diplomatic process of trying to create a ceasefire.
Adam, I'm sorry, I'm just going to cut into you because we're just getting a source. Reuters is now saying that Israeli media is citing senior Israeli officials saying that they attacked the Hamas leadership in Qatar, including Khalil al-Hayya and Jabarin, and that they are awaiting results. So they have gone very senior here, haven't they?
Yeah, so we are talking about senior figures within the Hamas leadership. And I mean, this ultimately is saying that they're going all in here. That this is while we've all been looking at two things, Gaza City, the operation there, and while we have been looking at the negotiations, Israel has now taken this extraordinary step. I was just saying, I was due to see people to talk about the diplomatic side of this. The United States has been trying to push forward for this deal, and yet, again, to go back to your question about, well, yes, Israel has attacked Yemen. The Houthis have applied munitions to Israel. They've attacked Iran. They've traded lots of missiles. They've attracted Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Qataris are not firing missiles into Israel. So this is a complete step change, and Qatar would have said that they were hosting negotiations. They hosted a Hamas delegation, just as they've hosted delegations involved in these negotiations, and that for Israel to attack their territory, they will find utterly unacceptable. Other Gulf nations have said just recently that the idea of Israel annexing the West Bank is completely unacceptable to them. Well, this is a provocation way beyond that. And as you said, what we are reading at the moment is that these are not low-level figures. This is not something that they have done out of the blue. This is a targeted attack on some of the most senior figures who are left in Hamas. Remember, this is an organization that has been enormously degraded. So when you have people like Zahir Jabarin being targeted by the Israelis, then this speaks to a huge step change in the Israeli operation. And if this is happening at the same time, today them saying everybody should leave Gaza City ahead of a major offensive, this suggests that Israel has moved once again into a higher gear militarily and is pushing itself right back onto a very aggressive posture.
Well, if you're just joining us, let me just remind you of the breaking news in the last few moments. There have been a number of explosions inside Qatar in the capital Doha, and Israel says they are responsible. The IDF says that they were targeting Hamas officials in Doha. We have a full statement from the IDF. It says the IDF and ISA, the Israeli Security Services, conducted a precise strike targeting the senior leadership of the Hamas terrorist organization. For years, these members of the Hamas leadership have led the terrorist organization's operations, are directly responsible for the brutal October the 7th massacre, and have been orchestrating and managing the war against the State of Israel. Prior to the strike, measures were taken in order to mitigate harm to civilians, including the use of precise munitions and additional intelligence. The IDF and ISA will continue to operate with determination in order to defeat the Hamas terrorist organization responsible for the October the 7th massacre. Well, let's bring in Michael Clark, who's sitting next to me. Michael, how significant do you think what's happened in the last half hour?
No, as Adam said, it's a step change in Israel's response, and it comes on the back of several things. So we had the Jerusalem bombing, Jerusalem shootings yesterday. Overnight, the Israelis said that they had recovered Carlo machine guns from the site. Now, these Carlo machine guns are homemade machine guns, by and large, which tend to be made in some of the workshops in Ramallah, which is the de facto capital of the West Bank. The Israelis have surrounded Ramallah, and they're moving in counter-terrorist operations, as they call it, there. So there's a lot of tension. And then in the meantime, Hamas, in the last few hours, claimed responsibility for those shootings in Jerusalem. So the Israelis have reacted immediately and swiftly in a step change, bombing or taking out, killing Hamas leaders in Qatar. Now, they've never done that before. I mean, Ismail Haniyeh, who was the long-standing leader of Hamas, lived in Qatar. They knew where he lived. They tracked him all the time. And there was a sense while he was in Qatar, because that was where negotiations all took place, that was where lines were kept open, diplomatic lines to Hamas, they left them alone. And the Hamas leaders always felt that they were safe when they were in Qatar because they were operating in a political environment that praised mediation. And Haniyeh was only assassinated when he went to Tehran for the famous state funeral. So it was the inauguration of the president. So, I mean, Haniyeh himself was safe while he was in Qatar, and he wasn't safe when he was in Tehran. The fact that the Israelis are now targeting Hamas leaders in Qatar is really serious. And the Qataris will take this extremely seriously. Abdul Rahman Al Thani, who is the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Qatar, and who is extremely influential in bringing people to the table and in orchestrating negotiations. Goodness knows what he's thinking about this, but it throws any prospect of the sort of ceasefire that President Trump was talking about only 24 hours ago right into the mixer. I mean, President Trump, has said, I have a plan. It's rather a vague plan. And Israel had said, yeah, we agree with the plan, but there's lots of things to be worked out. Hamas has said they were considering it. Forget about that for the time being. That won't happen, not least because Hamas leaders have now been taken out of the picture. So it'll take Hamas, even if they weren't, furiously angry about this, it will take them time to put other people into those positions. And what the Qataris can now do is very doubtful. The Americans have criticized the Qataris over many years, saying, look, you're too close to Hamas, you're too close to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a sort of a core organization which supports jihadists in many parts of the Middle East, but not in others. The Muslim Brotherhood is a different sort of animal, depending on which country you're talking about. And Qatar has always been criticized by the Americans as having too close a linkage to the Muslim Brotherhood and some of the organizations like Hamas and to the Palestinian Authority, the PLA. And the Qataris have more or less stood their ground and said, there are times when you will need us. You needed us when you talked to the Taliban, before 2019. There are times when you need us, and that's been true. Nevertheless, a lot of people in the United States say that Qatar is too close to the radicals. Qatar has maintained its position, but here, I think, on the basis of this, Qatar will, I guess, reconsider what it does and the way in which it reacts to this.
Right. Well, we have now, via the Reuters news agency, got a response from Qatar. They say Qatar condemns the cowardly Israeli attack. targeting Hamas officials in Doha. So they go on to say this attack is a flagrant violation to all international law. So clearly this wasn't something that the authorities in Doha knew anything about or had been
So it is.
warned by
It's an
Israel.
extrajudicial killing of people in a neutral country. And it's quite hard to justify that. It's not without some justifications in the role of counterterrorism, but extrajudicial killing of people that you believe are terrorist leaders is always consequential. And when you kill the only leaders that you're talking to in a negotiation process, then it also has a big political outcome.
Also, another update via Reuters again, an Israeli official says that the US was notified before the Hamas leaders were struck.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
logical.
not unusual.
But I bet they didn't give them a lot of time. They might have notified them. I bet they didn't give them enough time to
They didn't
react.
ask their permission. They just told them what they were doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sounds like it, yes. If they'd have asked their permission, I'm sure they wouldn't have got it, because this actually throws President Trump's peace plan out of the window for the time being.
What impact do you think this will have on that?
Well, I think it just becomes irrelevant now until there's another round of something. But I mean, it shows that the attack on the bus in Jerusalem yesterday has had the sort of effect which the terrorists there wanted it to have. They wanted to, as it were, upset any process towards a peace deal. They also presumably wanted to express their anger at Israel for all that it's been doing in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And when people do that sort of thing, a suicide attack in a civilian area, just killing as many people as possible, what the terrorists are trying to do is to create a degree of political chaos. And here we are. There was a bus attack, followed by Israeli reactions in Ramallah, followed by Hamas's declaration that they did it, followed now by Israel's response, crossing a line in assassinating individuals in a third country, which has always been a very peaceful, neutral, peace-loving country. And so that's the sort of the action and reaction cycle that terrorists hope to have. They always hope that they can create an act which is so outrageous that everybody overreacts, and then it changes the political situation. And so here we are. The situation now is different to the situation of 72 hours ago, significantly so.
Israel's Channel 12, and this again coming through Reuters, says Trump apparently gave the green light for the attack on the Hamas leadership in Qatar. I mean, how you interpret that, I don't know.
Well, I found that surprising, if that turns out to be true. You never know with President Trump what his logic was. He may have felt that the Israelis have got to strike back decisively, but if he'd thought about it, if he did give the green light and he'd thought about it, he must have realized that this actually changes the situation to his detriment. It makes American influence even less over Netanyahu, because it actually puts his peace plan even further back. I mean, Hamas are never, ever going to agree now to the peace plan that they said they were considering. When I say never, ever, not for the foreseeable future. And Hamas can't be pressured into surrendering in any political sense. They're beaten militarily, but they're not going to surrender politically and say, okay, we'll go out of business and we'll stop representing the things that we represent.
And as we can see now, these are the latest images that we have of the skyline in Doha, and you can see the pall of smoke there rising. Just a reminder that Qatar has, in the last few moments, said that this attack is a flagrant violation to all international law, that there is an investigation going on at the highest level, and also that it has condemning what it's calling a cowardly Israeli attack.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is to meet the Israeli president later, just a day after Israel's widely condemned strike on Hamas leaders in Qatar. The strike took place in the Qattara district to the north of the centre of Doha. That attack, which killed some members of Hamas, has been condemned by Sir Keir Starmer. He said it represented a flagrant violation of Qatar's sovereignty and risked fueling further escalation in the region. Benjamin Netanyahu insists the attack was completely justified after 6 people were shot dead in Jerusalem on Monday. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has said he wasn't notified in advance of the strike.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today.
Did Israel tell you in advance? Did Israel tell you in advance
So you were caught by surprise, sir?
I'm never surprised by anything, especially when it comes to the Middle East. I'll be giving a full statement tomorrow, but I would tell you this. I was very unhappy about it, very unhappy about every aspect, and we got to get the hostages back. But I was very unhappy about the way that went down.
Our correspondent Sally Lockwood has more details now from Doha.
Well, certainly it feels like it's really shattered the sense of peace and security that so many enjoy living here in Qatar, but it's also really shattered the sense of trust that is so integral to hosting these peace talks and these ceasefire talks that Qatar has played such an important role in doing for the last 2 years. What happened yesterday is that Israel brought its war with Hamas to the streets of Doha, and people can't quite believe it. Qatar has expressed absolute fury over this, and neighbouring countries, other Gulf states, have also expressed their shock and concern that their reputation for being a stable, peaceful region and peaceful states is really, really something that they care a lot about. But Donald Trump is also certainly very unhappy about this. That was very clear yesterday as well. Qatar is a key ally. They have a huge military presence here. It's their biggest military presence in the Middle East. And it doesn't seem that America was asked for permission or that was even given any real forewarning by Israel. The White House saying yesterday they found out from their own military and then alerted Qatar straight away. And certainly Qatar have said they weren't given any warning at all, that they found out. They received that call 10 minutes after the first explosion here in Doha. Certainly so many diplomatic red lines have been crossed here, and there's a real sense, what was Israel thinking, and was it worth it? They didn't even take out senior members of Hamas leadership as they claimed to be targeting, and certainly it does feel like it's left the ceasefire talks in tatters, many really feeling like this was a huge miscalculation by Israel.
Details there from Sally Lockwood.
Good evening. Qatar has been at the center of negotiations to stop the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Well, today, the Gulf state came under attack from Israeli missiles aimed at Hamas leaders in its capital, Doha. Sources in the region have told me the strike, which Israel called Summit of Fire, was approved in strict secrecy by a core group within cabinet, hidden from the wider cabinet. Among the targets, exiled Hamas leaders and chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya. He, among others based in Doha, had seemed out of reach as Israel assassinated its enemies in places like Tehran and Beirut. Well, no longer. Shortly, I'll speak to US correspondent Mark Stone at the White House, but we begin with this report from our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons in Jerusalem.
The smoke you see here is from an explosion, and its shockwaves are now echoing around the Middle East. Israeli airstrikes on Doha targeted at Hamas leaders who'd gathered there to discuss a ceasefire in Gaza. Sky News understands Hamas's leadership committee survived this attack, but 5 members of the delegation were killed. Qatar says it had no prior warning of the attack. Israel's Prime Minister, proud and unapologetic about attacking a Gulf nation.
Much of the world, including much of the democratic world, or governments at least, have shamefully forgotten October 7th. But I don't forget. On this day, as in previous days, Israel acted wholly independently, and we take full responsibility for this action.
The Israelis claim they were spurred into action by this, the bus attack on Monday morning in which 2 Palestinian gunmen killed 6 Israelis. But the attack on Qatari soil had been planned for weeks, if not months. Hamas had claimed responsibility for the bus attack, but not long after, its leaders were being targeted by an airstrike. Qatar is a geopolitical powerhouse. Negotiations were held there within a month of the October 7th attacks. It said it strongly condemned what it called a cowardly and criminal attack. Qatar is also home to the biggest American military base in the region. And this time, The Americans, normally such steadfast defenders of the Israeli government, appear to be keeping their distance.
Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack.
Much stronger condemnation has come from countries in the region and from beyond.
I condemn this flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar. All parties must work towards achieving a permanent ceasefire, not destroying it.
In Gaza, the Israeli military has launched its assault on Gaza City. Tower blocks have been toppled, hundreds of civilians killed, and 1 million told to flee. Benjamin Netanyahu insists his aim is to destroy Hamas and to rescue the 48 hostages, living and dead. But some hostage families are now furious, insisting the attack on Qatar imperils both the ceasefire and their loved ones.
I am shaking with fear. I am shaking with fear. It could be at this very moment the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, basically assassinated my Matan, sealed his fate. Anyone who decides to deliberately endanger my Matan's life is murdering him. Why does the Prime Minister insist on blowing up every chance for a deal? Why?
Certainly the chances of a ceasefire now do seem slight. And there are those within the Israeli cabinet pushing Netanyahu to use military might to simply annex all of Gaza. This was already a taut country. Now, as air raid sirens ring out again, the tension and the anxiety are increasing.
And Adam joins us live now from Jerusalem. Adam, I mean, if anyone had said we'd wake up today and find that Israel had launched these strikes on a sovereign state, Qatar, a US ally, we probably wouldn't believe you. But this was an audacious strike.
It really was. And you're right. If anyone had predicted that, you would have probably written it off. And yet it happened today, and I think it's a measure, to be honest, of the extent to which Benjamin Netanyahu believes that he can act pretty much with impunity, because he has developed this extraordinary thick skin towards global condemnation. He has been hit with a wall of opprobrium about what is happening in Gaza, about the death and destruction that has happened there. He and his government have simply sloughed off these criticisms, these allegations of genocide. They have completely written off the suggestion of famine occurring there. And to those who have pleaded for restraint, including senior members of his own military, he has pushed back, and we wait this huge offensive around Gaza City. So I think it is that partly empowers him to think that, yes, he can launch an attack on Qatar and fire missiles and not have any comeback from that beyond condemnation from what he would see as the usual sources. What will trouble him is the fact that the White House seems angry, because if there is one politician in the world that Benjamin Netanyahu fears and who he relies on, it's Donald Trump. And the idea that President Trump was angry about this and indeed spoke to the Emir of Qatar and has said, well, this won't happen again, I think might trouble Mr. Netanyahu. On the flip side of that, where was he tonight in the hours after this? He was at an belated American Independence Day celebration here in Jerusalem, and that is where he spoke unapologetically about this attack and about not forgetting October the 7th. And that is what will continue, I think, to drive him. The fact that he feels empowered and determined to avenge the 1,200 people who were killed on October the 7th. And he is listening, as so often recently, to two very right-wing members of his cabinet, Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, who are both pushing him to go further and stronger and harder in terms of potentially annexing Gaza and encouraging settlements and potential annexation of much of the West Bank. And as long as the world merely condemns with words Mr. Netanyahu, I think he will continue to feel that he can act to an extent without being restrained, and he can act with impunity. So much will rest on whether the White House feels that its criticism, its sort of gentle restraint will hold him back, or whether he feels that he really does have to change tack. And at the moment, the words, the sense, the feeling coming out of Mr. Netanyahu's government is that he doesn't really feel he's done anything wrong.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for all of your analysis there. Let's just bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who joins us live from Washington. And Mark, in many ways, just to the point that Adam has made there, Benjamin Netanyahu does feel emboldened. So even though, you know, we get readouts of these calls between the Emir of Qatar and Donald Trump, who has tried to reassure him that this won't happen again. Frankly, he probably can't make that kind of guarantee because right now, Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't seem to think anyone can stop him.
And Netanyahu has every right to feel emboldened because you only have to look at the language that has come out of this White House for many, many months. Donald Trump has been almost explicit, certainly implicit in his view that Israel will do what it needs to do. He's literally said that on multiple occasions. Netanyahu will do what he needs to do on Gaza. And so this, I think, is the consequence of that. Netanyahu believed that he could get away with this. And I was struck at the statement from the press secretary, Caroline Levitt. I mean, talk about sitting on the fence. It was very, I mean, you know, I slightly disagree with Adam, what Adam said. That I didn't get any sense that the president is genuinely angry with Israel about this. I mean, he's not one for being diplomatic for the sake of it. If he wants to say he's angry, he will, and he didn't. You know, through that statement, he said, you know, unilateral bombing does not advance Israel or America's goals. And then he went on to say, however, eliminating Hamas is a worthy goal. And at the end, he said he feels badly about the location, but interestingly, Yalda believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. Well, I can tell you from Qatari sources I've been talking to here in DC through the day, they do not believe for 1 minute that this furthers any possibility of peace or a ceasefire. Indeed, they say it sets it back. And this morning, Qatari diplomats were saying what the Qatari Prime Minister has now repeated publicly, that they believe this is another clear attempt by Israel to undermine the advancement of any prospect of a ceasefire. So an extraordinary day here. And it's worth remembering too, Yalda, that, you know, I was listening to Netanyahu just now, and you could be forgiven for thinking that perhaps the Israelis had got new intelligence, that they'd suddenly discovered that these Hamas officials were in Doha and they needed to take them out. Clearly, that's not the case. We know that for many, many months now, the Israelis and Hamas officials have literally been sitting in the same hotel, different wings of the same hotel, and the Qataris and the Egyptians and American officials at times have been shuttling between those two wings, trying to find a form of peace, trying to find common ground between the two sides. So this is a very intentional, unilateral move by the Israelis, and it's very hard to see that it is anything other than a complete undermining of the prospects for peace.
Mark, thank you, as always, for that update. Well, in Doha, in the past few minutes, Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim bin Jabr Al Thani has been responding to today's Israeli strike on Hamas leaders in the capital. Here's some of that news conference.
With the approval or with the knowledge? We had a very first of all, the first part of your question, I have just answered it. The attack happened at 3:46. The first call we had from an American official was at 3:56, which is 10 minutes after the attack. And after that, President Trump has spoken with His Highness the Emir. He condemned the attack, and the U.S. government position that they have no knowledge about the attack nor any coordination about it until it started to happen. Now, when they got the alert, when the alert has reached us, that's an information that I don't know right now. What I know that the official channels that we have with the U.S. Got notified by the U.S. after the attack by 10 minutes.
السؤال الرابع والأخير صحيفة الشرق.
That's Qatar's Prime Minister, also the Foreign Minister, speaking a little earlier. And we've just had a statement from the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Part of it reads, such as this: the state of Qatar condemns and denounces in the strongest terms this reckless criminal attack, considering it a flagrant violation of its sovereignty and security and a clear breach of the rules and principles of international law. Qatar will take all necessary measures to protect its security and preserve its sovereignty. So that was the Emir of Qatar putting out a statement. And as we said, he has spoken to Donald Trump as well, who attempted to reassure him that this sort of thing will not happen again. Well, let's bring in now the former Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett. Mr. Bennett, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. And we've just read that statement from the Emir of Qatar, who has said this is a flagrant violation of its sovereignty and security and a breach of international law. This is a blatant disregard for international law, isn't it?
No, international law starts with the duty to defend your citizens. And I want to say that international law does not provide immunity for arc terrorists and the masterminds of terror attacks, wherever they are. We'll get to any terrorist wherever he may be.
Well, in fact, international law is very explicit. No state may attack another without Security Council approval or a case of direct self-defense. So, frankly, you didn't seek any of those approvals. You've gone into sovereign territory, crossed the skies, and launched this strike on a sovereign state.
You know, when the U.S. went out and took out Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, they didn't notify Pakistan in advance. That was also a sovereign country. You have to do this in order to eradicate terror. These are the people who control Hamas in Gaza, control Hamas in Israel. They are responsible for yesterday's attack, where Hamas took responsibility for the killing of 6 civilians in Jerusalem at a bus station. So a terrorist is still a terrorist, even if he sips tea at a 5-star hotel in Doha.
So you're saying basically that sovereignty is negotiable. International law is just a thing of paper. Diplomacy, these sorts of things don't actually matter, because we know that for the last 20 plus months since October 7, Israeli officials have traveled to Doha a number of times, sat in hotels where Hamas was in another wing of that hotel and negotiated with their Qatari counterparts. How can they now trust Israel?
I don't need them to trust Israel. Qatar is a terror state. Doha is a terror capital. And we know that for the past 25 years, they've been planning terror attacks from Doha. They've been acting them. They've been sponsoring terror and funneling billions of dollars to Muslim Brotherhood terrorists and to Quds terrorists of the Shiite. They're the only ones who support financially both Shiite and Sunnite terror. So I don't need their approval. I don't need them to love me. I need to protect our people.
Well, the United States, they're an ally of the United States. They have, the US has military bases in Qatar. And frankly, as far as keeping terrorists there, it was the United States under President Barack Obama who asked the government of Qatar and the Emir of Qatar to have the Hamas office there. So pointing the finger of blame at Qatar in this instance for housing Hamas, when it was in fact the US president who asked them to do that.
No, but I'm talking about much more than just harboring. I'm telling you that, first of all, we attacked Hamas. Hamas is our target. We didn't attack the Qatari leadership or anything of that sort. But I want to be very clear that if you take responsibility yesterday for killing 6 citizens, you're not immune just because you're at another location. You can't kill Israelis. You can no longer kill Jews and think that you can get away with it wherever you may be.
So, Mr. Bennett, when the US president tells the Emir of Qatar or attempts to, reassure him that this kind of thing won't happen again, are you saying he's in fact lying?
No, that's what you're saying. I'm not saying that.
No, he's told the Emir of Qatar this is not going to happen again. You're saying wherever Hamas is, we're going to go after them. So you would attack Qatar again?
I'm not going to say what we're going to do or not going to do. I will tell every terrorist on earth
you said we will do it again.
Let me be clear. Any terrorist on earth who's planning to murder Israelis, planning to murder Jews, will be killed if necessary. Nothing will be a safe haven for terrorists who want to murder my people.
And that is the position of the Israeli government, regardless of what the US president is saying, that this won't happen to the Qataris again?
I don't think the U.S. president says that you can go murder Israelis and get away with it. He himself said that these. Let me finish the sentence. President Trump today, after the attack, said through his spokespeople that the Hamas leadership needs to be eradicated.
He did, in fact, but he also spoke in the last hour or so with the Emir of Qatar. They've put out a statement saying that the U.S. president has told them this isn't going to happen.
Look, what I can tell you is my message, our message, is that the days where you can go around murdering and raping and burning Israelis, let me remind you, it was Hamas who attacked Israel on October 7th, burning, raping, murdering 1,200 Israelis. Right now, Hamas is holding 48 hostages, of which 20 are alive and being tortured and starved to death in dungeons. So Hamas is the terror group. We are on defense. And when you take out terrorists, you're actually saving lives, and we're proud to do that.
Naftali Bennett, thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you.
I'm joined now by Mustafa Barghouti, Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. Mr. Barghouti, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. I just want to get your reaction to the events that have unfolded today and the strikes that Israel has launched on Qatar, targeting Hamas leadership.
I think what happened today has shown that Israel is practicing state terror against other countries, violating their sovereignty, even against a country that was instrumental in the release of so many Israeli captives through the negotiations that were conducted on its soil. I think what we've seen today has given us the proof that Israel is undermining any possibility of reaching a ceasefire and the negotiations that were supposed to reach a ceasefire. But unfortunately, it also has shown that Israel is declaring that its intention of violating international law whenever it wants. And that is the explanation of the behavior of Mr. Netanyahu, who practically says that he has the right to attack any country, anytime, anywhere, whenever he wants. We've never seen such a behavior, except maybe since the Nazi time during the Second World War, when a country gives itself the right to attack other countries. Let me remind you that Israel has been attacking not only Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, but also Lebanon and Syria, and of course Yemen, and now Qatar. Qatar, the peaceful country, the country that has no conflict with anybody, that has done everything to be a mediator in so many conflicts, and that has been instrumental in all the previous negotiations. It is truly shocking that such a thing could happen.
Mr. Barghouti, you just quoted there what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier said. I also just in the last few minutes spoke to former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who reiterated that anyone who attacks Israelis, attacks Jews, will be punished no matter where they are in the world, regardless of whether they're in Qatar or elsewhere. That is how he justified today's attack, and said that Hamas is a terrorist organization and therefore they are fair game. They weren't targeting Qatar, they were targeting Hamas.
He spoke about the 6 Israelis that were killed. I don't want anybody to be killed. But why didn't he mention the fact that Israel has killed already 65,000 Palestinians in Gaza? 83% of them are civilian Palestinians, including 200,000 children. What do you call a country that kills 20,000 children? That would be classified as a terrorist state. And that is exactly what Israel is about. But he speaks about Jewish people only because he believes in Jewish supremacy. He believes in the fact that Israel has the right to have self-determination for Jewish people, but not for Palestinians who live on the same land. That's the kind of racism that we face. He didn't mention the fact that Israel has already destroyed more than 90% of all homes in Gaza. And he didn't mention the fact that Israel has already killed or injured 11% of the population of Gaza. Apply that to the United States of America. You would be talking about 33 million people killed or injured in the course of 23 months. This behavior is unacceptable. I think the life of a Palestinian is equal to a life of a Jewish person. You can't say that a Jewish person should be saved, but a Palestinian life is worth nothing, and that Palestinians can be killed. That is exactly what terror is about. When you classify another people as people who can be killed, who can be occupied, who can be conducted or subjected to apartheid. And that's exactly what we have. For 77 years, Israel has ethnically cleansed 70% of our people, have occupied our country, have imposed apartheid system on us, and now they are killing people. And now, without any kind of shame, they declare that they want to evict and ethnically cleanse 1.1 million people from the city of Gaza, threatening people with bombardment. You can see that on TV. That is a behavior of a terror state.
Mr. Barghouti, we've spoken over the course of the last 24 months since October 7, since the violence in Gaza began as well. Are you disappointed in the way in which the international community, the United States, the West has responded, statements or inaction? They're talking about recognizing the state of Palestine and trying to push for a two-state solution. But do you feel that all of these things are just statements and not any real action to bring the violence in Gaza to an end?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And thank you for this question. Because in reality, what is being slaughtered today in Gaza, what is being destroyed also in the West Bank, by the way, where we are subjected to settler terrorist groups armed by the Israeli army and supported by the Israeli army, burning houses, killing people, shooting children. All of that is happening because what we see is not only the slaughter of the Palestinian people, but the slaughter of the international law and the international humanitarian law. And we are absolutely, of course, disappointed. Recognition of Palestine is welcomed because it affirms our right of self-determination, but it's not enough. It's too late and too little and is not enough. The only thing that will restrain Israel if these countries, the Western countries, do to Israel what they have done to other countries. Why 11,000 sanctions on Russia in less than 2 months and not a single punishment act on Israel, not a single sanction for 77 years of oppression, ethnic cleansing and displacement, and now these massacres that are happening in Gaza? Yes, we are disappointed about all those who used to come and teach us about international law and humanitarian law and human rights and democracy, and we believed them. I believed them. I feel betrayed. Our people feel betrayed because they have not done anything serious about stopping Israel from continuing these massacres against us.
Mr. Barghouti, thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you.
Got some developing breaking news. President Trump has just posted this on Truth Social, and I'm just going to read it out to you. We've got it there on our screen. He writes, "This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. This was a decision made by Prime Minister Netanyahu. It was not a decision made by me. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States. This is working very hard, and that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals." So that's President Trump saying that this was a unilateral decision made by the Israeli Prime Minister to bomb the state of Qatar, a sovereign nation, he says, a close ally of the United States, and it wasn't a decision made by Donald Trump. I immediately directed Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did, however, unfortunately too late to stop the attack. I view Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the US and feel very badly about the location of the attack. So that's a statement from President Donald Trump distancing himself from this attack on Qatar, which, of course, as we've reminded our viewers, has a large military airbase in Qatar. He describes Qatar as an ally of the United States. He said that he immediately asked his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, to inform the Qataris of the attack. However, it was unfortunately too late. He does go on, though, to say, talk about the importance of ending the war, that he urged the Prime Minister. He spoke to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the attack and told him that he wants to make peace, and that he says that Hamas needs to release the hostages. So that's a statement there on Truth Social by President Trump.